Okay, hi. Good morning, everyone. So this is going to be a video going over how to access the online database at through the university library webpage. And I think I mentioned this in the video when I explained assignment three. I'm also going to show you how to use social abstract, I believe, as well as social index. Okay. But the first one I'm going to show you is JSTOR. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to click on, go to the webpage, campus webpage, go to the three dots, click on that, then go to the library. All right, and this is the library webpage. So then you're going to see this, and the first green box that you see to your right is the article database. Okay, and then once you click on that, you'll see like the alphabets. And the ones that are highlighted is an indication that they have hyperlinks to go to certain online databases. But you'll notice that Q, X, Y, Z, and the pound sign are not highlighted. So that indicates that they don't have any journals or yeah, journals or serials that are associated with these letters. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to J for the JSTOR and just click on that, and it's the only one listed. And then you're going to click on the JSTOR link. You're just going to wait a few minutes, and it's going to show. It should show you this page. I'm just waiting for it to completely load. Um, when you first click on the JSTOR link, what you'll see first is your a page for you to put in your student credentials to allow you to gain access to JSTOR. Because once you log in, you should see this at the very top of the web page. Access provided by California State Dominguez Hills. This just indicates that Dominguez Hills and other, well, just Dominguez Hills has an account with JSTOR. So you as a student and I as a professor have access to all the information that's here on JSTOR. Because just as a word of warning, because if you do not go through the university webpage to access JSTOR, you're going to see all this with the exception of this. So this is not going to be present, right? Um, and then when you put in your search, sorry, you're going to hear my cats in the one of my cats in the background, and because if you don't, JSTOR will give you access or allow you access to certain articles or resources, but they won't give you like a huge selection because the majority of the articles will be behind a paywall, right? So just to sort of like warn you, because the cheapest that I've ever seen JSTOR charge an article, I think it was like $25 or $35. And the most that I've seen JSTOR charge, I think, was like close to 200 or around 200. And the reason being is because that particular article was very influential in bringing up certain issues that weren't thought about before. Right, and that's also one of the main reasons people do research. Okay, now once you sign in through your student credentials, you'll see this. All right, and then and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to look for certain articles or themes because the way that the system work and it pretty works for all the other systems. They work on a meta language analysis. So what that basically means is that when you put in certain terms or key phrases, the algorithm, and then eventually artificial intelligence, because it will help speed up the research process once it's implemented in a lot of these websites or online databases. You want to be able to play around with the words, right? So don't necessarily just limit yourself to like one or two phrases or one or two perspectives, but sort of think about what are associated with your particular topic. And that's why I suggested with assignment or when I went over assignment three, that you can go to Wikipedia and just look at what are the things that are associated with a particular topic, and then sort of note down key terms or repeated phrases that you might see. Right. And then that will help you be able to look for and find relevant information on any particular topic that you're going to study. Okay. So for this example, I'm going to look for, globalization and immigration. Right, because it's definitely a hot topic. And especially, I believe late last night, the Trump administration released a list of countries that are no longer or citizens of countries that are no longer going to be allowed to enter the United States. Right. And then you also have the issue of, ICE going around the country looking for undocumented immigrants and having them arrested, detained, and then deported. Okay. Oh, excuse me. All right. So the first thing you'll notice that once I put in globalization immigration, there's about 46,500 articles or results. So then and you can look for just for globalization immigration or author or creating, and then I think the title. So we'll just go with author and just see what this gives us. Oh, okay. So that didn't work. So when that happens, you just go back to the initial word pairing. All right. So let's try title and see what this gives us. Oh, only three results. Kind of odd considering how relevant globalization and immigration is. Okay. Presentación, globalización, e inmigración. So, unless you are very comfortable reading like Spanish and using it in your work, you can do that. But there are very specific things that you need to do when you use a source that's written in a different language, and that just adds more work to you for you. Okay. But if you want to, let me know, and I'll show you how to go about using an article that was written like in Spanish, right? Okay, so let's look at the other two sources. So backlash against globalization and immigration. Yeah, sounds interesting, but that's a book chapter. Because another thing that you notice, JSTOR sort of labels what type of media it is, right? Meaning like this is a journal article, this is a book chapter, and here's another journal article, which is written in Spanish as well. Let's just say hypothetically that this looks somewhat interesting. All right. Um, and even though it's a book chapter, you could still use it, even though that I explain in the not the handout, in the video to explain the article at assignment 3, only research articles. But if you do have a book chapter that does fit within the context of your research, you could use it. All right. So that's perfectly fine. All right, but I just sort of limit it to articles because sometimes it's just easier, and there's actually more articles written than the book chapters. But you determine that, okay? So just giving you the green light on that. So you're gonna click on this before you even consider downloading it, and you want to see what the contents are. Just waiting. Okay, so the backlash against globalization and immigration. Right. And then on the left hand side, it'll give you the information divided politics, divided nation, hyper conflict in the Trump era. So this is in 2019. So this is sort of within the time frame that I think I mentioned in the initial video about how many years back you can look for article research. So this would be still at least within that specific time frame. So that would be okay. All right. Then you could sort of look at the book, right? So here's the cover, and it's published by the Brookings Institute Press. Okay, the author, the year was published, and here's the table of contents. All right. So peaceful upheaval, one mistrust, two economic frustration. So here are all the chapters, right, that are associated with this particular book by Wells, I believe his name is. Sorry, I forgot. Oh, West by West. Okay, and then you could also look at, and then what JSTOR will do, it'll give you some pages to reference. So let's see what it says on page 127, if it cooperates. No? All right, so this is the page, right? Disagreement over the U.S. relationship with the rest of the world are among the conflicts that have emerged in recent years. Right. So this is a general description or general category of um, what happened during the first Trump presidency, and sort of the political and other conflicts that sort of characterize his administration during his first term, as well as we're repeating and apparently actually going off the rails, right? Where every country, almost every country, with a few exceptions like Russia, Hungary, are in support of what's tending to happen here. And the reason why I know is um, you can go to, oh, sorry, I'm blanking out. The BBC, and they have like newspapers from all over the world, and sometimes they'll have, or they'll have Russian newspapers, and they're mostly written in Cyrillic or in Russian, but they also might, if I remember correctly, have an English based one, and that one's a little more liberal but critical of Putin. But then you can go to Google Translate, highlight some of the articles that you see that have like Trump in or refer Trump, and they're basically celebrating what's happening here, right? But I don't want to necessarily get all into that, okay? But that's sort of like the idea. But anyway, getting back to this. And then the other thing that's nice about JSTOR is that they'll also present other material that's related to your particular topic, all right, from the same journal or the textbook, all right. Okay, so let's say that you do want this. What you do is just download, click on download, and then this will come up, and you just click and accept, and click, and it'll download, and then you have your own copy. So all this is free, as I mentioned. I'll try this later. See, all AI assistant, as I mentioned, it's going to be popping up everywhere, like in the next coming months to years. So here's just another example. Okay, so then this is just like the entire chapter. Okay, here and they have a graph. So there is at least one quantitative graph sort of indicating. All right. All right. So like if this is one, just label it and you could put it in a file. So then what I recommend, and I'm not sure if you do this, to just sort of keep your materials organized for this class or any other class, what I would suggest is create a folder for like semester spring 2025, and then put individual folders of the courses that you're taking, and then put materials that you get like readings or syllabi or things that you need for your own work in that class, and you just label the folders in that particular folder, like saying research assignment 3, or sorry, assignment 3 annotated bibliography, assignment 2 research proposal. So then that way you have a record of the work that you have, and you're also able to reference it, and it's much easier to organize your material that way on your device. Okay. All right, so let me close this, and let me go back to the main page. All right, so I'm gonna put globalization and immigration. All right, so I'm just going to hit just to see the 46,000 results. All right, so here are the 46 plus results, and as I mentioned, you see article, journal article, journal article, journal article. Um, right, and this is why I mentioned that you'll tend to see more of these than book articles. Okay, All right. And then there's also another category that they have, and here's a book chapter. And another one category of resources they have are book reviews. All right. Let's say that you do find a book review that's relating to your topic. I wouldn't necessarily use it, but I would use it. Sorry. So a book review is where a professor will read a book and they'll sort of provide their assessment of the book and how it fits like with the overall discipline, what the argument is, if there are any innovative approaches or perspectives, or or is the article just sort of re articulating what's already known about a particular subject, right? Um, so then that's a book review. So like if you have a book chapter and you want to know more about it other than from the perspective of the author, you can see if there's a book review on that particular book, read what that professor wrote about the book, so you could have an insight, another insight into that particular book. And I know it's much more reading and work, but in the end it will benefit you in the long run, right? So I'm trying to also have you think about, don't think about the short term about what grades and about like a particular class, but think in the long term. And that is one of the keys to succeeding at the university level. Okay. Okay. So just sort of, so here and here, like some more. So let's just say that these are too many articles for you to look through. So then what you want to do is go to the left-hand side of JSTOR webpage. Sorry about that. And you're going to see academic content, primary sources. You'll notice that there are 30,525 journals and about 13,714 book chapters. And then the other category is research reports, which is 997. And you could also use some of these sources as well. Okay. So let's just say that we're just primarily focused on journals. So click on that and it'll reduce it to about 30,525. Oh, but forgot to mention. So, like, let's just see what they have here. So, globalization, immigration, changing social relations in U.S. cities. Let's see, 97. Oh, that's 97. All right, but I'll talk about like the time frames about using article research again. All right. So then, if you want to change like the results based on date, what you can do is sort by relevancy. So you can put the relevance or the newest. So you want to put the newest research. Okay. So here's one that was published actually earlier this year, Marx on the Capitalist Globalization, edited revised edition. Right. Here's a book chapter, Reclaiming Democratic Citizenship while Tackling COVID in South Korea. Nation and World in Modern Dance, Jim Mobility's Writing and Rewriting Modern Dance History. Okay, that just seems out of place. Okay. Human Trafficking Campaign in Cameroon, Cultivating Hope and Fear. All right. Maybe some of these articles or book chapters talk about immigration, but um, yeah, so like that's sort of what I meant. You need to sort of be cautious about like how you use this. All right. All right. So let's just sort of fix this. Instead of doing newest, let's actually look at the oldest, which should be sort of the same results as, oh no. Okay. So here are the 46. All right. I don't know why these are here. All right. So global ethics and global peace, regionalism, studies in American Indian. All right. So like if this doesn't work for you, then just go back to the relevance. Okay. So we picked the journal articles. So 30,000. You could do serials, but I would just keep it at this and then just skip down. And if it's still more, then you want to go through what I suggest is go to the date and put 2025. No, sorry, 2019. to 2025. And I know that's 6 years. Actually, go to 2020. Okay. And then just hit apply, and then you'll see how far this number will be reduced. So 2,000 articles, so a little more manageable. So family separation under the Trump administration applying an international criminal legal law framework. This would definitely be something that's relevant because of what's happening now with like detentions and what have you of undocumented immigrants in the United States. Now, don't necessarily quote me on this, but I did hear, right, that the Trump administration may restart the family separation program. Right. But I only heard it from one source, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. We just have to sort of unfortunately wait and see what's going to happen, right? If they're actually going to implement it or not. Right. Okay. But other than that, getting back to this, so you can just sort of skim through and see what they have. Political economy of hate industry, Islamophobia in Western public sphere, presence of right wing extremism and terrorism in the West, violating food systems, globalization, immigrant origin, student, and quest for educational equity. Right. Yeah. So you can sort of, again, it depends on what you want to do with your research topic, and then if you haven't thought about something and you see something that does interest you, look at it, and especially like with issues of immigration and education. Carloa Suarez Orozco and Marcelo Suarez Orozco are a married couple who are professors of education, and they've done a lot of research on education in the Latino community, right? So they're very, very influential, right? So if you are interested in this topic, I would strongly recommend that you read the work of Suarez and Orozco, and especially Carola, right? Okay, now getting back to this. So just sort of click, and let's see, migration and labor market integration. So let's say that you want to focus on immigration, but you also, and that there's about migration and labor, you could look at another part of the world and see how that journal or that article talks about immigration, let's say in Europe. And then you could sort of say, well, if we look at what's happening in Europe, what can we learn about the American immigration and labor market experience, or vice versa? So this is a comparative and contrast method. Right. So if you've taken sociology 355, you should be able to do something like this. All right, like a comparative type of study rather than just focusing on one topic. All right, or one dimension of immigration. But again, that's up to you. But if you want to learn how to do that, let me know, and I'll show you how to do that as more as a one on one. Okay. Um, okay, so let's say that we do want this. All right, so let's just click on this because we're interested in the labor market because of what's been happening like across the country. Because I think I mentioned on a class on Wednesday, Nebraska seems to might be going bankrupt because the whole of Nebraska voted for Trump, and because of the ICE raids and the anti-immigrant sentiment, a lot of farmers in Nebraska are worried that they're going to lose their farms, right? But anyway, so that's why that would be like my rationale to maybe using this article in my research. Okay, but just like with the book chapter from Professor West, so here's the title, the authors, and the Journal of Economic Perspectives, and then you could read about the issue because the what journals will do is that they'll have a theme. So then you want to sort of look at what are the theme for that particular published journal, all right? And also what they're about. So you can click on that and sort of read about what they're about. And here are like the um, back issues, all right, of the American Economic Association. Okay, so let me go back to the initial page. All right, here. About this issue, the abstract. So this is the abstract for this particular article. So it says the European labor market allows for the border free mobility of workers across 31 countries that cover most of the continent's population. However, rates of migration across European countries remain considerably lower than interstate migration in the United States, and spatial variation in terms of unemployment or income levels is larger. We document patterns of migration in Europe, which include a sizable migration from east to west in the last 20 years. An analysis of worker level microdata provides some evidence for an international convergence in wage rates and for modest static gains from migration. We conclude by discussing obstacles to migration and reduce the potential for further labor market integration in Europe. So you notice that so before you want to download this, you can sort of see if this really fits in your overall plan for your research. All right. So then they do talk about the United States. So then they in this article, Dorn and Zumueller, Zmueller, might do a comparison between Europe and the United States in terms of like immigration and the labor market. And then you could also see like search 38, look at the text. Let's see what's on page 16. So then here, let's go back one page. And so here they're talking about static earnings gains from migration. All right, and what that means is that even though that you have migrants working, they're not earning enough, or that their wages are stagnant. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, second, we calculate the earnings based on the calculations, and here's some quantifiable data. 12.7 million intra-European migrant workers. So intra means that you're having migrant workers sort of travel within the European Union. Inter would be like going from European Union to Africa, then Africa to North America, or the United States, and then Canada, because you're going between states or regions, right? So understanding terminology is very important. Okay. All right. So let's just say that we skimmed some more, and we're thinking, yeah, that we might take this. And then you could also see other related articles from this same publication: the labor market integration, refugees, migrants in high income countries, or looking at asylum migration to the developed world, persecution, incentives, and policy. All right. So this is a good way to see what other sources are there from the same journal and whatnot. Okay. And let's say that you do want this article. So then again, just like what you did, I showed you earlier, just click and then it'll show up, and then just save it to your device. And then hopefully you would put it in specific folders to make sure that you have everything that you need readily available when you need it. Okay. All right, so let me close this and go back. All right. So then let's just say hypothetically, you want articles from a specific discipline. So you can go to African American studies, and there's 44, or African studies, there's 40. American studies, there are 95 articles. Archaeology. So the ones that would be much more relevant to sociology would be African American studies, African studies, American Indian studies, American studies, maybe anthropology, maybe architecture, because in my work I do look at architecture, and you can look at art, Asian studies. Yeah, I'm always amazed, like in biological sciences and botany, they have some categories that relate to this. British studies, classical studies is looking at like Rome and ancient Greece, so you wouldn't necessarily look at that. You could look at criminology and see what they have, or even cultural studies, and especially for like this type of class, definitely looking at development studies. So let's just see what they have. Misinterpreting 1980 populism and liberal outreach, but you also have to make sure that it does relate to your topic. World's fragmentation